Hi guys, Yakto here, and this is the second part in the series Tank Weakspots that I'm doing. And this video is about Tier 2 or Rank 2 tanks in War Thunder Ground Forces. And let's start off by having a look at the Russian tanks, and then after we've gone through all the Russian tanks, I will have a closer look at the German tanks. So let's begin. First off, I just want to make you guys aware of one weak spot that is valid for every tank that is out there, and that is the soft underbelly, the underplate of the tank. If you can get a shot in on that underplate, the tank will basically have no armor at all, because the way they design tanks and still do is that you don't need a lot of armor on the bottom of the tank, of course, because you're meant to take shots from every other angle, and preferably the front. But the bottom of the tank is very often unarmored, and you need to make sure that you don't come over a ridge and showing off your weak underbelly of the tank. And this is valid for every tank. So with that said, let's begin with the Tier 2 tanks. And here's the heaviest armored tank of Tier 2, or actually the KV-1 and the KV-2 are the most heavily armored, but this one, this is the KV-1. And where do you want to shoot this thing? Well, you can start off by trying to hit this flat area of the lower hull. It's it's 90 millimeters thick, but it's a flat area and it's non-sloped. So if you have the penetration for 90 millimeters, this will knock out transition or the transmission for the tank, and possibly even kill some crewmen with the concussion of the blow. Also, this area, the yellow area down here, the low glacis, is a good spot to fire at, but 90 millimeters armor is 90 millimeters, so it might bounce as well. Another easy target is, of course, the driver's hatch with the slit here. If you hit that, the shell will just go straight through, and that will kill the driver. And if you're lucky, it might ignite ammo stored under the turret of the tank, and also perhaps the motor back, or the engine at the back. You can also aim for the machine gun port, and you have a sight here. I'm not sure if that is a weak spot on the tank, but it should be, since there's no armor here. And as well, you can aim for the turret ring. What you don't want to aim for is this sloped 90 millimeter plate. It will bounce any kind of shell from a Tier 2 machine, and as well the turret, so avoid that. So, moving on. Or so I thought. Let's do it this way then. So here's the KV-1 from the side, and you can actually shoot everywhere, but it has some thick armor on the side, 70 millimeters, so probably your best bet will be to try to immobilize it and go around the back and hit the engine from the back. That's what I would do if I would be driving a Panzer Kampfwagen Mark III or 4 with a lower velocity anti-tank gun or cannon. You can also aim for the turret ring, of course, to jam the turret and hit the side of the turret. It might penetrate, but it might bounce as well. Okay, next tank It's the KV2, and it's basically a KV1 chassis with a heavy turret. What you want to avoid hitting on the turret is the sides if you are facing it from the front. Also, the front of the turret will probably bounce your shells, and this plate here. But you can aim for the same weak spots as the KV1, and the same goes for the sides of the tank. It's more or less the same, you know. You can also aim for the side of the turret. It might go through, but like with the KV1, I would go around it and try to hit the engine from the side and try to immobilize the KV2. I didn't bother to make a photo or a picture of the KV1 from the side because it's a KV1 tank, but with a heavy turret. And also there's a chance that you will penetrate the KV1 from the front by trying to hit this flat area of the turret at the front. That might penetrate and jam the turret ring and kill some crew members. But otherwise it's basically more or less the same as the KV1. So, T-31, model 1941. It's just like the rank 1 prototype 1940 T-34. It has the same armor, the same tank hull. The only difference is the turret. It's slightly changed. So what you want to aim for is the low glazes, the machine gun port. The driver's hatch is a good and big weak spot at the front. Do not fire at anything else on the T-34 from the front, except for perhaps the turret ring. And if you're lucky, you might get a deflection shot where it might bounce and penetrate the tank if you hit these spots on the side of the turret. And also the observation port up here might blind the tank, but in most modes in the game that's not important. So if you're playing arcade and realistic battles, the player will still see you. And I'm unsure if they will get blinded if you fire at this port at the moment in simulator battles. So from the side, the T-34 is it has two vulnerable spots. One is the turret that I would say is quite incapable of bouncing a shot from any kind of German anti-tank gun. And then you can hit this area of the tank, which is engine and crew compartment here. Avoid firing at this well-sloped area. We'll just back up so you can see how well sloped it is. That will probably bounce a shell. And you can knock out the gun as well if you want that and immobilize the tank. It's a good idea to get in behind and fire to get an accurate shot on the engine. So the T-34 with the 57mm cannon, it's just the same as the T-34 1941. It just has a different gun, and yeah, low glazes here, driver's hatch, machine gun port. You might want to aim for the sights and the machine gun here. This is the sight, I think. I'm unsure. And you have the observation ports here for the commander, and then there's a radio antenna there. But these modules aren't really targets that you want to shoot at until they have an effect in game. Knocking out the radio might hinder the tank's communication with other tanks, but as of now that's not in the game, so you don't need to worry about that. Avoid hitting the T-34 here at the side of the turret, because that will probably bounce a shell or two. And you have a good spot here at the turret ring for jamming the turret and causing crew damage. So at the side it's basically more or less the same as the T-34 Model 41. So nothing new to say there. Yeah, the turret is a good target, and the lower hull. Here's the SU-85 from the front. It's basically a T-34 without the turret, and it has the gun in the superstructure. Where do you want to hit this thing? Yeah, since it's a T-34, hit it in the lower glacis or the driver's hatch. Might also want to go for the commander's cupola. And you can cause some module damage as well, tracking it and knocking out the radio and the viewports here and here. From the side it's an easy target and is quite vulnerable. If you look at this superstructure sloping, if we go back, it's not that well sloped, so I would say any shot from the side would knock out the tank. This half of the tank is the engine, so if you knock that or hit that, you will cause engine failures, probably engine fires. And this superstructure thing, hull thing, is the crew compartment, so that will injure the crew. And also you have these spare fuel tanks sitting out here on top of the tank. And I haven't really tested it out, but hitting the fuel tanks could cause a fire, but I'm unsure. That remains to be tested. And the SU-122 is also a T-34 model tank, but with a superstructure instead of a turret. Aim for the low glacis. Also you might aim for this flat spot right beneath the gun and the driver's hatch, obviously, and the aim here. Viewports here and the radio. From the side it's just like the SU-85, an easy target. Just try to hit it anywhere in the hull and that will knock out the tank, hopefully, with 1 or 2 shots. So, German tanks. This is the Panzerkampfwagen 3 J, I believe. It has double armor platings on the hull and the turrets, so that makes the armor on the top hull and the turret 70mm thick. So that's a good defense this tank has against the Russian low velocity anti-tank guns. So if you're a Russian tanker, aim for the lower hull and the lower part of the lower hull and the lower glacis. As you can see here, there's bands or threads, pieces of spare parts here protecting the hull. That might also give the Panzerkampfwagen 3 some extra protection against shells. You can also aim for the machine gun port and the driver's hatch and the different kinds of aims and machine guns in the turret, because those places are unarmed. And as well, if you want to kill the commander, you can hit the commander's cupola. From the side you have the engine back here. If you hit that, engine will start burning. There's a crew compartment area here with a viewport that is basically unarmored. You have an escape hatch here, it's armored, but yeah, if you fire at that, you might just as well fire at anywhere on the turret, and that will probably penetrate, since the Panzer III, or all the Panzer models except for the Tiger, are basically thinly armored on the sides. You have an escape hatch here for the crew, so hitting that is also a weak spot. What you don't want to fire at is this bin or box at the back of the turret, where the crew put tools and stuff for the tank. So that's not a weak spot at all. If you hit that, it will just get blown away. Here's the commander's cupola, so that's a valid target area as well. And the Panzer III M is more or less the same thing as the previous model. It has some extra armor. It also has some skirts on the side and the turret. So here you want to go for the lower hull, machine gun port, driver's hatch, machine gun port in the turret, coaxial machine gun, and then the commander's cupola. This tank could be tricky to fire at from the sides, since it has the Scherzen. They might stop heat round or HE round, but they're thin, so an armor piercing shot will just go through, or it should go through. I'm not 100% certain that the Scherzen works the way it should. They should in the game, but yeah, just fire wherever you want at the Panzer III from the side, and it should go through and injure the tank. And the Panzer IV, this is the F1 model with the short 75mm howitzer dual purpose gun. From the side you want to hit the hull and the turret, except for this canister. So it's easy shot from the side. Just make sure you hit it, and you don't hit the gun, and then you should knock out the tank. From the front, it's a slightly harder target to penetrate. The lower glacis is more or less unsloped, so that's 50mm unsloped armor. That should be a penetration with any Russian gun, actually. And also the machine gun port, driver's hatch. You have a weird looking hatch here as well. If you fire at that, a shot should make its way through the armor plate. And also the upper part of the hull is non-sloped and 50mm thick. The same goes for the turret. So firing at these three areas will probably cause critical damage to the tank. You also have the commander's cupola up here. Avoid firing at these side spots on the turret and this area, since they're quite well angled. And a shot here might knock out the tank, but it might also just cause critical damage to the gun. So I would avoid that, and I would avoid firing at this well sloped 50mm thick area as well, since that might cause a bounce, and then the shot might fly up into this area and then bounce off that, since most of the shot's momentum has gone away from hitting this area. And I didn't bother to make a picture for, or to make two pictures for the F2 model, since it's basically the same tank with the same turret. It just has a different gun, a slightly bigger and better version. Yeah, just have a look at these pictures and imagine it's a F2 model because the tank itself is more or less the same. So the StuG III Mark Ausfang F. It can be tricky to penetrate. I would aim for the lower glacis of the hull and these sloped areas here, and I would avoid any other area on the tank. I would just aim for these 3 spots, and preferably the driver's hatch, since a lucky penetration here would take out the tank. But from the side it's a totally different thing. The Sturmgeschütz is not well armored at the sides. It's designed to face its enemy, and if you can get around the side of it, you will probably penetrate and knock out the tank. So just aim wherever you like. So that's it for me and the second part of the Tank Weakspots. So have a good day, and I'll see you guys around.